The behavior and the conduct of people that you know, people with whom you're friends, people you worked with for a long time around January 6th, around questions of the election. I'm thinking of people like Kevin McCarthy, who continue to perpetuate this lie that drove those people to the Capitol for that ugly, terrible, tragic scene on January the 6th. How do you explain their behavior? Have you talked to any of them? And what would you say to them now if you haven't yet?
I've not talked to them, and there's no reason for me to question their behavior. They're in office. They've got a tough job to do. My book was not intended to be critical of, well, a few people, but not many. And they, listen, when I was the leader, I had people shooting at me every day. That made my job harder. And I'm clearly not trying to make their jobs harder than it is.
Well, you're talking about legislative fights and fairness. What we're talking about is the integrity of the election. When you had the leadership of the Republican Party all the way up to the president saying that Joe Biden was an illegitimately elected president. Many of them still say that today. So what do you say to that? Do you believe that Joe Biden was fairly elected?
I'm not seeing any facts that would support that position. So I've been waiting for the facts because we live in America. It's the most transparent country in the world. There are no secrets. They all show up. And yet, there are no facts. Courts would have heard cases if they would have presented some facts. They would have had no choice but to take up those cases and to deliberate on them if, in fact, there was enough evidence to support those claims. But there wasn't any evidence. I mean, I was looking for it myself. Never found it.
So you believe Joe Biden is the fairly elected president of the United States?
I said that pretty clearly after the election, and believe it today.
Hey, Mr. Speaker, it's so good to talk to you again. We could start telling stories.
Buddy Joe, I remember, Joe, when you were a freshman member of Congress.
Oh,
I wasn't your buddy then.
Oh,
I wasn't your buddy then. I was difficult.
You were a pain in the ass, is what you were.
Yes,
he still is.
Yes, I was, and which is interesting because that's what leadership would say about you when you first got to Congress. Then you moved into leadership. You became Speaker, and it's interesting. Here you are now, all these years later, sort of. I'm not going to say on the outside looking in, but looking at the leadership, looking at the party, and once again asking, what the hell's going on? Is there a future for this Republican Party? If so, how does it begin moving to a position that, a party that doesn't chase conspiracy theories?
Well, I think it's about acting like a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. I believe in fiscal discipline. I believe in a strong national defense. There are principles that unite Republicans. And I think what the party needs to do is go back to those principles. It's not about who's the craziest candidate out there, who's the loudest candidate. It's about acting like a Republican. And I think that Mitch McConnell's been driving this point, frankly, pretty consistently. And I think that eventually we'll get around to being Republicans again. But right now, the party's a bit split. Of course, you see the same kind of split going on in the Democrat Party. You got a traditional Democrat like Joe Biden being pushed to no end by the progressives in his own party. And, this skirmish has been going on, long before Election Day. But after the election, this skirmish has been going on. It's been there, but not real visible to most people. But I think the skirmish in their party is going to widen considerably as they try to move this infrastructure bill through the Congress.
John, you write about Mark Meadows. He's somebody that I've known, somebody that I've considered a friend in the past, and somebody whose actions, once he gets out of sight, seem unrecognizable. He darts all around. We saw it time and again, especially during Trump's illness and towards the end, his recklessness during the COVID crisis, mocking reporters for wearing masks. You had quite a relationship with him as well, and you talk about a time where he got on his knees and started begging you for forgiveness. Tell us about that.
Well, it was a couple of months after he was elected and sworn in. His first day in the Congress in January of 2013, he voted against me to be Speaker. Well, I went on to win, and a couple of months later, my staff came to me and said, Mark Meadows wants to come in and see you. Sure. I had an open door policy. Any member who wanted to see me, I'd see him. And so Meadows comes in, and he looks a little nervous. He's sitting on this low couch across from this chair I used to sit in. And before I could really say much, he slid off of the couch onto his knees and put his hands in a prayer position and looked at me and said, Mr. Speaker, would you forgive me? I said, for what? I forgot all about the fact he had voted against me after the 2014 election. He voted against me again to be Speaker. And then 2 months later wrote me this glowing letter. Listen, he's a nice man, but a bit schizophrenic.
Yeah. Were you disappointed in his performance as Chief of Staff at the White House?
Well, I don't know how anybody could succeed as Trump's Chief of Staff, because he didn't want a Chief of Staff. He wanted to be the Chief of Staff. Mm-hmm. And so everybody who was in that position was in an impossible position.
Yeah. In your book, it's interesting, you write about Bill Clinton's impeachment, and looking back, I've thought time and again that I made a mistake. I voted for 2 of the 4 articles of impeachment and thought we should have just censured him. But you also, over time, came to that same conclusion. Explain.
Well, it really didn't take me long to figure out that we probably shouldn't have gone down that path. Now, there's no question to me that Bill Clinton committed perjury. And, for the President of the United States to violate the law is an impeachable offense. But lying about sex is not an impeachable offense, according to the American people. And I think it got judged completely wrong and shouldn't have happened.